All right, everybody, it's episode number 46. Why is he speaking English? Is he trying to impress with his worldliness? No, I got like my first international guest today. If this one goes on for a little bit, then it'll be episode number 46 and 47, which will be appropriate because 47 is the international prefix for anyone who wants to call Norway from outside.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Before I go any further, I want to say rest in peace, Homie. I got the news of his passing the day of recording the last episode, the U-boat episode, but after we did the episode, so I was unaware at the time. When this comes out, it'll be like a few weeks since his passing, but still definitely want to acknowledge him and say thank you for your sincerity and all that you were, Alfia. All right, so the reason I got English-speaking guest today is because I'm kind of covering a topic that Norwegians wouldn't want to get on camera and speak about for fear of incriminating themselves. I'm interviewing a cannabis farmer. His name is Homie Romie. That's how I know him, at least, of the Rising from the Ashes podcast. He's half of the excellent podcast Rising from the Ashes. They cover lots of really interesting topics. I first came across Romie on the Weaving Spiders Welcome podcast, which I'm also a huge fan of. It's probably my favorite podcast of all times. And I also enjoy his appearances on the one-on-one podcast that I also like to follow. Yeah, Roman covers all kinds of cool topics on his podcast, so I like to just point everybody in that direction. But today we're not focusing mainly on the stuff that his podcast is about, but his day-to-day life as a cannabis farmer. For anyone who's might be listening to this from outside of Norway, there's been a debate about legalization going on for a while over here now, and it seems like the dominoes will be falling with Germany legalizing, then Denmark's gonna have to, and now there's a bridge between Denmark and Sweden, so it's like it looks like it hopefully won't be too long, and obviously this can play out in a lot of different ways. For those who don't know Norway, it's like Norway is no stranger to like state monopoly. So it's a question how free things will be, even if they're legal. And I figured it would be really interesting for everyone to hear from the perspective of someone who's like not in any kind of like big time commercial kind of business, but still is like an independent cannabis farmer who enjoys the liberty of being able to grow his product. So with all this said, thank you so much for being here, Homie Romie of the Rising from the Ashes podcast.
Hey, brother. Thanks for having me on, man. I appreciate it. I'm speaking with you. Both my podcast partners' love for Norway and for all of the Northern European cultures. We are supremely fascinated in that history. It seems to run incredibly deep with so many ties to some ancient mysteries, and it's one of our biggest fascinations on the podcast. So it's an honor and pleasure to speak with you today, sir. And hello, everybody in Norway. How are you doing? What's up?
It's crazy we're able to connect like this. Like earlier today, I went skiing in the woods.
Nice.
Which is like a virtue for Norwegians, when the conditions are right and you have the time, you're like supposed to, and you feel good about it when you when you do it. And it was like we had like a lot of snowfall yesterday and early this morning, so it's
Nice.
like
Oh,
very
fresh powder.
very white and pristine and super quiet. Like maybe you'll see a bird every now and then, but it's pretty much nothing. It was so quiet, and it was. I was a little like fascinated, almost like a child, at the thought that like in not too long I'll be like speaking to a guy from California, and like I've never been to California, but like my prejudice says it's like kind of the opposite of what I was experiencing when I was thinking it, like the quiet and the white and the cold and the like. And I was thinking about you and like, you know, whatever Rome is doing now, if he's awake, like it must be very different where he's at. But still, like in not too long, we can like hook up in sort of a neutral space. Uh, it's crazy.
It is. It is. You know, it is wild. You know, our history as humans is so fascinating. Thinking about, you know, how our bodies are so susceptible to all of the elements comparatively to other animals. Birds, you know, any mammals, fish, right? Like they can all be wet for long periods of time, wet and cold in the mountains, and their bodies are just able to handle those things. But us, we're so sensitive, so we have to make things in order to deal with the elements. It's super fascinating. So, in order for us to fly, we had to build planes. In order for us to run fast, we had to build cars and bikes. For us to be able to travel on the snow, we had to build skis. And it's like we just like we are something else, and it's spectacular. Yeah, California is a big state, right? It's one of the biggest states in the United States. So where I'm at is beautiful, right? They call it the Emerald Triangle. They say it's one of the best and greatest places geographically to grow cannabis in the world, and it kind of correlates geographically to the Hindu Mountains. It's called the Emerald Triangle. It's Trinity County, Mendocino County, and Humboldt County. And the mountains up here are pretty special as well. You know, we got Mount Shasta. We have the entire western range of mountains that they call the Ring of Fire. You ever heard of the Ring of Fire?
No.
So the Ring of Fire is the tectonic plates that create the Pacific Ocean and the North American plate. They, you know, one is submerged and one is on top of the other. And how volcanoes are made is like two tectonic plates either coming together and creating a mountain, or they create a rift, and one's on top of the other. Underneath that is massive amount of magmatic volume. And you know, we have Yellowstone National Park here, which is a pretty famous volcano. They say, you know, it's a super volcano. If that goes, that's a part of the Ring of Fire, and it goes all the way up through the Aleutian chain up in Alaska, and it reaches into Russia. And then that's where the tectonic plates start to change, and you get the different Eurasian plates and things like that. You guys are located more on the Avalonian plate, if I'm not mistaken. We have the North American plate, the Atlantic Ocean, and then the Avalonian plate. Not seriously, don't quote me on that. But anyways, the Ring of Fire is one of the most magmatically active spots, and that's why there's a lot of magma and magnetism, right? Mag, like those archetypes correlate together, and humans naturally are drawn to volcanic places. It's part of the creation stories, and so that's why you get a lot of people coming in and out of the West Coast, specifically, is because of this heavy magnetism that's going on. It's also incredibly dangerous whenever it does happen to even just a slight wiggle from one of these tectonic plates can end people's fragile bodies in a quick second. And it's quite humbling once you start to look at Earth like that, you know, in our surrounding areas. Like when you're skiing, I'm sure you feel incredibly confident and comfortable out there in the nature. But, you know, something happens, right? See ya, you
Yes.
know?
Yeah, sure. I was like, it might be just me being like overly optimistic, but I was like actually more conscious of the fact that if something happened like back in civilization, I would be
Mm.
like completely unaware for a little while.
Oh, that's interesting.
Like when you're skiing there, like you're thinking like everybody else could be dead now. Like they could have been dead for an hour. Like you wouldn't know.
That's a movie right
uh,
there. You get back home, the guy goes skiing in the morning, he's having a great day. Maybe it's his birthday and some sort of special day. He's having just a wonderful time, has a great experience with nature, and comes back and just sees like this town is devastated. He's the only one alive standing, and he has to find out what happened. Maybe aliens, who knows? I'm a big sci-fi nerd, so uh always have to go that route. But let's talk about cannabis. What do you want to know, brother?
so
What can we dive into here?
yeah, I want to start with this. Like, this is now the time of recording is Tuesday. My time is 9:15 in the evening. So your time is now is 40 minutes until noon, right?
Just
So
20 minutes past noon.
okay, yeah. So I'm guessing you've been up for like somewhere between 6 and 2 hours.
Yeah.
So if we go back in time to when you woke up, just like uh, describe to me, do you have like any like routines or life hacks or how you like to
Mm.
start your day?
Very, very, very important question to ask, actually, and something to always be reminded of through our community is the word ritual gets kind of a lot of shade thrown on it, but our lives are ritualistic. Everything that we do has a ritualistic nature to it. So that being said, there's an opening ceremony and a closing ceremony, and it's incredibly important to do those things and having those practices. Now, I'm not perfect by any means saying I do every day. I have a perfect regime. You know, I've actually lived quite a vagabondish life, a very different to a lot of people that I come across in the sense that like um, I like to I move a lot, and this past 2 years specifically, grinding and growing and learning and being here in the mountains has been beautiful, and there's been a lot more ritual. But last night specifically was kind of funny because I went to go do a big jam session on one of the wineries here. Mendocino County is known as the wine valley too, so there's just lots. It's either you're growing cannabis or you're growing wine, right? Those are like the two main crops out here. So, anyways, I was up till like 4 in the morning making music with this beautiful family that owns this winery, and they're like the people that own the winery is a family of 12 siblings, and they all live on this winery. It's a huge winery with all these different cool houses and like statues, and they got all these kids, and everybody's just like a fucking next level musician. Like the guy on the drums was just ripping it. I was just like, what the? I was like, where am I? I didn't honestly feel. They said I was good, but I was like, yo, I don't know. I feel like y'all are like 10,000 times better than me. But anyway, so I woke up after sleeping on a couch at this winery. Um, and I woke up and I felt really good because a change of place, like, so it's interesting because a familiar routine is incredibly important, and it ingrains a lot of memories in our body, in our mind, in our spirit. But there's something interesting too when you get to wake up in somewhere new, right? Like when you go camping or when you're on vacation. And I feel like it's almost easier to tap into a routine when I'm not at my own house. Do you ever get that feeling?
Usually when I'm not in my own house, I'm like at a hotel touring, and it's more like stressful because I have to like
Pack up,
catch a
go.
sound check.
Yeah.
It's like more focused on like don't really relax in the same way until after work. Uh, So now, if it's not related to work, I very rarely don't wake up at home. Like I have two children. It's
Oh yes, 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 yes. The babies will do that. Yes. No. So one of the things that I really like to do in the morning is like I have a dog and he's one of my best friend in the entire world. He's a very special creature to me. And we have moments together every morning as he presses his sweet little body onto mine and makes his presence known. You know, we share space together, and I try to recollect my dreams. If I've had any dreams, I will try to voice record them, or I'll try to record them somehow because I love dreams. I have very vivid dreams, and a lot of times I have friends in my dreams, or random people, and so I'm like, and try to hit them up and say, hey, I had this dream about you, let me tell you in vivid detail as I can. And my friends are pretty used to it by now. And then I go and I have a coffee ritual. Like, I love coffee. I've worked on coffee farms before in Hawaii. I have been in the process of coffee and I appreciate it. I'm not one of these guys that is just like, or like a classic American kind of like just like just drinking coffee with like no regard. Like, there's a lot of no regard. Like, it is a ritual in the sense of how that shit is made. It is beautiful. Let me tell you guys for a second about coffee. It is not easy. It is a lot of work to get it off the plant. You have to pull the plant. You have to make sure there's no beetles inside. You have to take the cherry, which, by the way, fresh coffee straight off the plant with red pulp on the outside is incredibly loaded with B vitamins and antioxidants. Highly recommend people try, even if you're in Norway with some snow. Like, I bet you can grow a coffee tree in your house, or in a greenhouse or something, because the processing of it is really great. But when you get to just like cacao is an incredible antioxidant with B vitamins loaded up the yang. And when you process it, you get chocolate. And that's amazing. Chocolate is so good. But the superfood itself is in the raw, ripe fruit. Anyways, it's a beautiful process, man. And so I try to respect the coffee growers by drinking it, and yeah, man. So that's really how it goes.
all right.
So, coffee is the big part of the day, part of the life, part of the ritual. It's hot. It gets like the body internal fire going. Step outside, try to go outside and just be like, okay, what is life? What is reality? And I tend to partake upon the cannabis flower generally between like the hours of 11 and noon, and just like a small take. I'm around so much that it kind of would blow a lot of people's minds, because I know a lot of people pay a lot of money for this beautiful product. But through that, you can't be tempted by the indulgences, and you really have to have willpower, and that's something that I've been trying to work on for the past few years. When I was younger, growing up, it might have been really mind-blowing for me to imagine where I'm at today with all this cannabis around. Like, I'd be like, oh my god, like, no way. Like, thought I would you know just be smoking all these huge blunts and shit. But I try to be as responsible with it as I can, because I have the access, right? Like, I don't want to, because I'll tell you what, like, I've been working in cannabis for almost a decade, and there's been like months of blackout periods, right, where it was so stoned AIDS itself. Uh, and so I do partake upon it on the daily, and especially when it comes to making music. Now, a lot of times I'll just be like, it's sober, for the most part of the day. But when it comes to making music, it's a absolute necessity. there's something about it that allows you to get beyond the layers. Because when you make music sober, in my opinion, when not you, I don't mean anybody. When I try to make music sober, it is generally just a little bit more uptight. Like it's just a little bit more uptight. And if I want the music to be like really just, if I want to tap into that ethereal level, cannabis is something that brings me there. And so sometimes I just try to leave it only for making music or only for tapping into um, creative parts of my day and parts of my life. Another really beautiful part is I'm big into my yoga practice, and I'm about to finally take some yoga teacher training, and am 100% advocate on it because it absolutely changed my life. And when you have cannabis in your ritual with yoga and breathing practices, something about it and the constituents of the cannabis allow your body to accept more peace and freedom from the celestial powers that be, from the ethereal powers that are surrounding us in the air that we don't get to see. These, some people want to go as far to call them dimensions, right? There's something in the air, and the air is one of the most beautiful elements, in my opinion, right? The air is full of so many mysterious things that we can't see, like electricity, like the oxygen that we breathe, like the jet streams, right? Like chemicals on as they're precipitating to their different material form. The air is full of life and everything. And so spiritually speaking and philosophically speaking and potentially even alchemically speaking, that air is it's on the higher echelons of the elements. If you were to look at the elements on a gradient scale, um, actually, I want to say it is okay. How are we gonna frame this here? Is it, where does the fire lay? Does the fire lay on top or below the water? If you were to lay out,
That's
let
what I
me
was
ask
thinking
you.
about. Like, where would you put the
Yeah,
fire?
where's fire? Where's fire? Because here's the deal. Wood, right? Trees are insanely wondrous, beautiful plants. And the Druids, obviously, and many other cultures held wood at a very high regard. There's something there, but the wood it's an earth element, but also at the same time, it's a fire element to burn the wood. It's sacred. It has its dual purpose, but it's one of the only things that is like really, really good for making wood fuel. And it's obviously been used for thousands of years. So let me ask you, what is your element? What do you think? What do you think? Is it, I want to hear your opinions, because I know you're deep in some philosophical research as well. So what's your opinions on where the elements lie?
I never really thought about arranging them in like an order like that. Just more so thought of it as like four different flavors, kind of
Yeah,
like
yeah. They're all they're all
not like a
very important.
hierarchy really.
Hmm.
But on regarding what you said about you were talking about music, and then you were talking about the celestial spheres. Uh, I had a funny little realization not too long ago when I was sitting in the fireplace, partaking, and I was thinking about this. I'm sure you're familiar with the Pythagorean system, where it relates like
Mm.
certain musical notes to certain, not only certain planets but also certain colors. And then I was thinking about, like, to myself, just thinking like, if I was to like make a song where a color, like the word of a color, like say green or red or whatever, was like the most prominent word of the chorus, and
Mm.
I make the
Hmm.
song in the key that sort of matches the color, would
Yes.
that make it like more of a hit record? Would it like subconsciously like feel sort of right to the listener? I was just thinking about this, like, to myself. And then, like, when I've been pondering for like a minute, I say to my wife, like, I wonder if there would be like a correlation like that. And she's sitting with her phone in her hand. So I tell her, fucking look up like Purple Rain. What key is it? Red Wine. And I was thinking about a few others, and they all fucking matched. Like, someone thought of that before me. Like, the odds are
Yeah.
1 to 7 that I would be right. But it was like 4 or 5 in a row. The only like big hit I could think of that didn't match was Yellow Submarine by the Beatles, which is kind
That's on another level.
yeah, and it's like a kind of goofy song anyway. But yeah, it was like, seemed obviously like someone thought of this before me. Like, yeah.
Oh yeah,
Lilac
that's a
Flower
super
by
great
Jeff
thought.
Buckley.
I love that. Oh, which one?
Lilac Flower by Jeff Buckley was one of them. That was Purple Rain, Red Wine, and it was one for Green too. I can't remember. But yeah, anyway, it was a funny little realization. Now, I like what you said about the rituals in the morning. I've been like, the past couple of years, I've been like big on trying to like ritualize my life. I feel like there's a lot to be said for just intention, but when you put like physical movements, intentional physical movements, and there's like physical action involved as well, like just drinking a cup of coffee or whatever. It enhances like the sort of the brainwashing effect of like putting your subconscious in the mode you want it to be. So like, I guess from I was like 18 until I was like 40, I was like very hungry for knowledge.
Yes.
I was like always like, that was like my urge. So I was like always trying to like collect more info, sort of. But the past couple of years, I've been like much more focused on like self-work and taking the time to like ritualize my day and work on myself. And now I feel like I'm just sort of accumulating life hacks. And it's like, yeah, the whole day becomes almost like a school. Like, if I'm not touring, I have a lot of time to myself. The kids are at school, like I have the time to do it. And I used to like be into like entertainment, but now it's like you just do like almost like one ritual after the other. Even like working out, it's like clearly a ritual, and you're like becoming who you want to be, sort of, and putting the intention into it. Like, the past couple months, I've been accumulating a couple ones that I even do before I get out of bed. Like, I start with like scanning my whole face. I picked it up from a healer woman, and she explained that because like the whole body is like attached to somewhere in the face, like by the nervous system. So it's like a great way to sort of feel alive in your whole body, is just scan the whole fucking face real properly.
Yeah.
I do that in the morning, and I include the ears as well, which is the hardest part. And then as I get out of bed, I just say out loud, everything I do today will succeed and bear fruit. Just like a little sort of setting the mood before I make my first cup of, usually it'll be tea.
Yes.
But it's amazing how much easier it is to get shit done when you start like that, as opposed to like checking social media or whatever.
Rolling out of bed, just, kind of, like but the thing is it's not easy, is it?
I don't know. It's like, it may be not easy to start, but I feel like it's so rewarding. Like at this time, it's like real easy. Like I couldn't possibly stop. Like I would crave it. Like by now,
starting them is
in the wrong way seems like kind of inflicting pain on yourself, like?
Oh, a little self-sabotage.
Yeah. um, but tell me a little bit
Yeah,
about
yeah.
your product,
Starting the
like
rituals is the hardest part, I feel like.
oh, we had a bit of a lag there. uh, but tell me a bit about your
Uh-oh.
product, like the what strains do you grow and stuff?
Oh man. So this year we had some incredible strains going. We work with Ethos Genetics, which is an incredible genetics company who are doing some pretty next level, um, really interesting like science when it comes to breeding. And that's one of the really interesting things about the the cannabis industry and how it shifted so much. So, it's something in my opinion that should never have been illegal, right? Like it's not really something that really makes sense that it should be illegal. If alcohol is legal, then why wouldn't cannabis? I mean, like I can get way more fucked up on a bottle of vodka than I can on a blunt of weed, and I can tell you what, like I'm going to be way more satisfied and less hurting and less feeling like I literally got fucking kicked in the face if I smoke a blunt than if I drink an entire bottle of vodka or something along those lines. So it really like has never really clicked. So it seems like there's some sort of like some hidden mysterious reason as to why this specific plant it's held in such like a high kind of regard in that sense. So point I'm getting at is it's really interesting to see the slow process of legalization and then all of the ingenuity of these beautiful, smart humans that are so articulate with their sciences and taking that to this plant. Like they're not doing with cucumbers or growing tomatoes or growing any other agriculture, but the amount of articulation and the science behind all of these crazy things they're doing with extracting specific cannabinoids, and pulling that out and then making this, it's gene therapy, absolutely, and that's happening. And I'm not saying that doesn't happen with massive agriculture crops. It does. Monsanto is known for doing that, right? Like they can make a seedless tomato or something along those lines. But that's a whole other conversation. So I'm working with Ethos Genetics, man, and I'll tell you something. You brought up the Lilac by Jeff Buckley earlier. We have Lilac Diesel and Lilac Cookie. This is some of the best smelling cannabis you will ever smell. It's unique. It is incredibly unique. It literally has a lilac essence to it, but it's also supremely sweet. Like it's almost like it has like sugar in it. Because it does. Plants have sugar in them, right? That is a thing. It's not sugar in the sense that, like it's processed and in the body, but like, plants provide sugar, obviously. It's a building block for life. And so that's an incredible one. Planet of the Grapes is another huge strain that we grew this year. That's Tommy Chong's strain of the year. And our other farm down in Mississippi is going to take on some greenhouses for the Tommy Chong business. So we're going to be growing some bud for him, which is really cool. Let's see. What are some of the other Oh my goodness. Skunk Hero. Okay. Skunk Hero is lemon, grapefruit, vanilla. Those are the notes that you get off of the nose. And so these different terpenes, are you familiar with terpenes?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, so the terpenes themselves are the constituents of the plant that give it its specific type of smell, right? And also the way that it's going to react in your body. Now, if you're smoking anything that's piney or lemony, which those two terpenes are called pinene and limonene, those are incredible creative cannabises. They are sativas and they have an incredible smoke, flavor, and feel, and they allow you to be able to function at work. They allow you to be able to have a clear head and actually give you a little bit more energizing of a feeling. Those are my favorite types of cannabis. So anything with a citrus note, a lemon note, or a piney note, you can call it a day on that. That's hands down my favorite kind of bud. But of course, we grew some ice cream cake. Let me think here for a second. What's another end game? Okay, and the end game. Some of these names are ridiculous. I don't actually condone a lot of these names these breeders are picking. I think they're kind of dumb. But Endgame was an incredible grow. It basically grows itself. Like there's some strains you get where you're just like, I don't even have to do anything. I don't even pull any leaves off of this plant. Like, I barely have to feed it. They're just chunky monsters. Absolutely fantastic. But on the other hand of that, there's these really finicky types of plants and these strains that are just so tedious. They grow tiny little buds and they're terrible to process and trim and do all these things, and they barely weigh out to anything. But they generally are incredibly stony. Now, those are going to be more gassy, and they're going to have that terpene that kind of knocks you on your ass. So the strain called flapjacks, literally, I'm not joking. It literally smells like hot buttery maple syrup fucking pancakes. Like it's insane. I'm like, I don't know how these breeders do it, but that's what I'm talking about. There's a science that is being developed with this. That, like, I mean, give it another decade, and I mean, it's going to be insane. Like I feel like you're going to be able to go to like a vending machine, and you could just press a button and a joint rolls out. Like I don't know. Like it's going to be crazy to see what the future of cannabis lies. But I think of things on a big scale, and studying history the way we do with the shows, and going into these different fringe and alternative topics. A lot of times, it makes me wonder if the reason why it has been, like held away from us for so long is because it actually had been being worked on in the background from science companies for a long time. Well, we do know that it has been held from us by the government and the military, using it for different practices. The American military using it in underground different practices to study patients and study the all of the psychological side effects and everything from it, as well as like LSD and other types of drugs. It's a very common practice for for these organizations, we'll say that for for a safe term there. These organizations that will they'll use these, and they'll have patients and studies on all these different things. And so when you think about how fast it was able to be so highly scientifically developed, it makes me think that, well, the second it went legal, there was some people that had been working on this in some underground labs for quite some time that actually brought it to the surface. And so it's kind of like a dichotomous feeling. Like, how do I feel about that? How do I feel about that? Well, I'm grateful. It's cool. I think it's inevitable, right? Like, I think it's inevitable. Technology is something that is so deeply embedded into our culture and society as humans. Like, we're so, uh, we're it's technology. We are technology, right? We are a form of biological technology. There's an algorithm in the universe. There is a celestial and cosmic code, and we are a part of that. We are a part of a natural, beautiful technology. So it makes sense that we would try to emanate what we are, where we came from, by basically, like, our cosmic parents. We are emanating them. They created us. We want to create versions of ourselves externally, and give it another couple centuries, and further down the line, the things that we create will then create other things outside of that as well. And that's how I kind of look at the world. So yeah, those are the strains we're growing. Sorry.
No, I like that. I think I kind of disagree a little bit. I tend to think of it as, like, if you think of it like a wheel of, like, spirit descending into matter, and then at some point starts to, like, bounce back up, then I feel like the thing that's being created is also the creator, right? The creator dives into the matter. but we're not like separate from who created us. And
No, by any means, absolutely not.
that's why I also don't think we can create something separate from us that like starts creating other stuff. And because I think we're kind of generating this whole thing, like I think we're part of the engine that makes reality, you know. So I'm not sure you could create a separate being, like something that's not human, and they could create something else, and they could like make reality the way we do. I'm not sure.
Well, they're damn well trying.
Yeah, definitely. So about the strains, I wanted to ask you, like, I've been fortunate to have been closely acquainted with a number of like really excellent growers over the years. So I've been exposed to like a very wide variety of cannabis, uh, more so than someone would if they only like went to Amsterdam or got like their stuff from like commercial sources. And having like say been exposed to like a fully like indica from South Africa versus say like an original haze, and you see how wide that spectrum is, then I feel like all the strains that are being offered to people, they're like a very narrow band in the middle. They'll call it like, oh, this is sativa or this is indica, but it's like, you know, they're all basically in the middle, and they have like a little more of this or a little more of that, but it's all obviously manufactured with like for commercial, like clearly they wanted to like flower in not too long. They wanted to be like bushy and chunky for bag appeal, but they want like a little bit of the sativa taste and the initial lift in the buzz. But I still feel like like if you go to like a seed bank or whatever, all the strains are like basically like very closely like related cousins. And but really there's like a whole world out there like Africans and Chinese and like but you know, how you feel about that?
Well, I'll tell you something that it's sad because, you know, as much as, I mean, I don't know where we're at is so, it's probably drastically different, right? Because we have a lot of legal here. So it's legal. You can just walk around with a quarter pound and like nothing's going to happen. You know, so I can't, and that's why it's really cool to talk about this with somebody across the pond. But yeah, so what something I've noticed in the industry, which is really unfortunate, is even as a grower, right? Like you can go and get your source from the guy who grows it, but there's still a chance, unless he like specifically is growing from seeds and like he knows where he got those genetics, that was mislabeled, misnamed. That's happened to us. Like we got some plants, some clones, right, from somebody. We bought these, you know, these plant starts, and they're like, yeah, this is Rule's Choice. They're like, great, grow it. I've worked with Rule's Choice before, right? And so I was like, okay, awesome. I love this strain. That was not fucking Rule's Choice. Okay, what am I gonna do with this now? What do I call this fucking plant? Do I call it Rule's Choice knowing it's not? Do I make up a new name? That happens all the fucking time. So it's just like, and like you were saying, like when it comes to commercialization, like they're gonna put anything on the bag to make you fucking buy it. They just are. Now there are labs that you know that do actual testing, and the great thing about like well, I won't say great thing, but one of the parts of the process of becoming a credited legal grower is you have to send all of your bud to the labs to make sure, check for bugs, to check for pesticides, and it'll tell you your content. So they're able to actually extract it. But that's just for that, you know, like there's shady business people everywhere. And so, you know, they could get their test results back and be like, oh, they said it was 24%, but it would sell better if it was 28%, you know, or something along those lines.
How long has cannabis been legalized in California now?
Medically since the 90s. It's you were able to get your medical card in the 90s, and dispensaries were popping up in the 90s. When it went recreational, that was that was in the 21st century. I can't put a
It can't
date on
be
it.
can't be that long ago, because I remember when I first befriended a well-known battle rapper from Cali. He was like a full-time trimmer for an illegal grow up.
Oh, that still happens, even though it's legal now. You know, that still happens. Yeah, absolutely. Like you can get. We just paid a trimmer this year $10,000 in 3 weeks to a month's time. $10,000. Now, that's because she's a hammer and she's fucking a hard worker. She's actually going to be in your neck of the woods. She's starting some travels here soon. She's going to go out Ireland, Scotland, and up to Norway and everything. But yeah, like the people make their full time job just trimming bud on black market farms because you get paid cash under the table. It's super lax. Like, I mean, like there's no rules besides, don't steal our shit and, don't fuck up. But yeah, no, it's, even though it's legal, there's still massive amounts of black market stuff going on, and that's a thing. But it's not legal all across the country, and so there's like this strange thing where it's like it's legal in some of these states, but it's not federally legal. So you, depending on who wants to, pay their legal dues or whatever, like whatever cop wants to be a true dick, I'd be surprised if we ever do see a federal legalization, in the sense that they're making so much money keeping it illegal because they're able to, right, to get to do all that stuff. So yeah, it was, I think, 10 years ago, safe to say 10 years ago, California went legal, and the West Coast just shortly followed after that. It was a couple years. The entire West Coast was basically recreational Colorado. Now you start to see all these other states fall in line, bop, 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 bop. But there's still a few states in the country that are 100%, and they don't even have medical. They don't have recreation. They don't have anything. Imprisonment laws for having just a small piece of plant material on you, right? Like I said, just depends on how the guy's feeling that day, like depends if, you're white, you're black, you're a man, you're a woman, like, it just really fucking depends. And that's the system. It's not perfect at all. And it's unsustainable, and it's over compartmentalized, and it's very problematic for a lot of reasons. But here we are, I mean, just trying to make it through the next day.
Tell me a bit about the bureaucratic process of becoming like a licensed grower.
So it's not too difficult of a process if you can get in. Now you have to get in by applying, and there's a certain amount of permits per area. So say there's 100 permits in your area, they're going to open it up at a certain time, like February 8th, for example. You need to apply by February 8th. Then you need to go through. They're going to approve you. They're going to come to your land. They're going to inspect, yada, yada, yada. So you have to pay thousands of dollars, and you have to get approved. And yeah, so it's not too crazy of a thing, but it's going to cost you a lot of money down. So you got to have some pretty good down investment to get it going. And now on the medical side of things, it's actually easier to grow like medical than it is recreation, because for a lot of medical stuff, you could set up an in-house grow in your garage, and you have a medical card slapped on your door. You're allowed to have 10 plants for that patient. Now that's how many plants you can grow legally in your house. You don't have to go through all these extra loopholes. And because when you do recreation legalization, what happens is they have these programs that want you to weigh your stems. They want you to weigh your fresh leaf that you're pulling off, everything needs to get documented. Every plant is tagged and bagged and in every decimal. So they don't want you to be cheating them at all, right? Like you need to weigh. That's you. I don't. It is fucking impossible to do that. By the way, you're gonna weigh every. Like you have to clean these plants up a lot, like multiple different times. You're not gonna weigh every single leaf. That's crazy. It's out of the question. But they, you do it so people fudge their numbers, right? Obviously. So believe it or not, it's actually easier to grow medical in your own home if you have some client cards. You can grow 30 plants in your garage, and trust me, you can get some. If you're good at what you're doing, 30 plants is plenty to supply you and yours.
So is there like a camaraderie problem with the license, or who are the people like making the decisions?
Yeah, so it'll go into representatives of that area. So whoever is working for the county, and it's completely ran by the state government. So the state government has counties that are specifically to that. A lot of times it's the same
Sounds like a
organization.
fucking perfect job for taking bribes.
Oh yeah, no, trust me. I mean, just like cops, right? Like it's like I've had encounters with the police where basically like they got everything on me and I gotta go, right? Like they're like, oh hey, there's cash, some weed and some stuff. Great. You can be on your way now. Cause I'm pretty smooth when it comes to, smooshing my way out of a situation. I'm like, listen, officer, here's the deal, right? Like you got some other shit going on, right? Like I'm not really on your high priority list. So why don't you go and get on the fuck out of my face? Um sorry. Big, huge rebel for a long time. But I respect authority in a lot of ways. I think that there's actually a potential place for the position of power. Like I think that it's okay. I think it's natural. I think it's fine. But what happens is it becomes completely ran by ego, money, and unsustainable practices, and that allows for extra amounts of chaos that seem to uh, do complete injustice to our fellow brethren, and that's not okay.
Tell me about your relationship with the stars.
Wow, with the stars?
Yeah, like the
What do you mean?
stars, the celestial
Such a
stars.
big question. Oh
Yeah.
wow. All right, let me gear up for this one. Uh, so yeah, um, I love astronomy, astrology, and the sacred sciences. Um, and so studying history on the podcast and being able to talk to many smart authors and everything, I have been captivated by space. And I even was a flat earther for a little bit, just a little bit, a small amount of time, because philosophically it's really fun to debate those things. And I still I'm not a globe earther, I'm not a flat earther. I am a all the abover, right? Like I really think that there's endless potential um to reality, and I think that like I think we're kidding ourselves if we think we have any idea what the fuck's going on. I really do. But what I do know is I have looked through many big, huge telescopes living in Hawaii for quite some time, where we have the Mauna Kea Observatory. Unfortunately, it's built on sacred Hawaiian royal lands, which is heavily disputed, and I agree with that. But because of that, they have the headlights there are like super low, right? They have like the certain color of the headlight, the overhead street lights that allow for no glare. So the stars there are next level. And I have another podcast called Moon Mysteries, where I work with an astrologer, and we go into the different transitions of the moon. And so, it's funny because you have astrology and you have astronomy. They're two separate types of philosophies in science. One of them is heavily more dedicated to space travel and the other one is philosophically trying to understand the different archetypes that our ancestors have basically been writing down since uh, anytime. Like you can't, there's no time when a culture wasn't writing about the stars, hands down. Hands down. It just is that way. So they're inevitably a part of us. Well, it took me some time to get over myself and the sense of looking and to my astrology and to looking into things that resonate with me. And what I started to realize more about just energy in general is that we have massive amounts of endless swath of emotion. We are so endless. You close your eyes and you go into that dark, vast ocean. It is endless. That is us. We are the universe, right? In the sense that you said earlier, that beautiful quote that you brought up about the circle, like we are creators, we are everything. All, and we're just there. So when you look into things like astrology, it starts to make a lot more sense to why you might have energetic archetypes tied to you due to the time and place that you were born, because these stars and these planets and everything has an energetic fluctuation on the Earth's atmosphere. No, and they're always moving. Everything's always moving. Your heart's always pumping. Your blood's always running. You're always blinking. You're always breathing. Everything is moving constantly. In the dust and the air moving on your blankets in your room, I mean, it's a little bit more stagnant, right? Because we create these walls and such. That's the humans doing what we do to survive the elements on a super technical level. And so to me, it really started to click and make more sense when I started to look at history more and start to relish in the roots of our ancestry. And I was like, okay, now I'm starting to get it. And then you start to look into what these ancient philosophers were saying about these archetypes and how, right? Like if these were primitive peoples, even like not primitive in the sense that they're just hunting with bow and arrow, but they don't have spacecraft or these things that we have now that we consider high technology. How would they ever even know about these different archetypes if they didn't just make them up on their own? That's where a whole other question of like, is there some sort of higher source that we came from? Did we come from another planet and we're kind of put here because this is a beautifully inhabitable place? And we know about gene manipulation. And I say the word manipulation, it doesn't mean anything negative, like being able to anyways, it's a whole thing. Mainly I condone a lot of my cosmological belief to the Sumerian stories and kind of the Anunnaki story. But I think a lot of that gets thrown around a lot, and there's a lot of I really do think that we are attached to another species. I do. I heavily believe that. And I think that's how all of these insane glyphs and structures and all of these hidden ruins, subterranean realms all over the world were existed, and they were so technical and so exquisitely detailed, and they have mysteries that we have yet, even with all of our fancy education and technology, even be able to scratch the surface of understanding. That they have huge knowledge of the stars. Now that's absolutely fascinating to me. So I have a big relationship with them. I think that you can connect to these stars through astral travel. I think that you can go and connect to these different things that you're attached to through meditation, through yoga, through diving deeper into yourselves and stripping away the layers. So I am a big proponent on looking at the sky, looking within, working with astrologers, tearing off the ego and letting it just be okay, just to at least hear these types of thoughts. Yeah, it's insane. Like the Dogon tribe of Africa, how they knew that there was the Sirius star was a binary system. We just found that out, relatively speaking, right? Like in modernity, we just found that out. And this nomadic tribe and the Dogon, I mean, it's the name itself, it just says it all, right? It's the doggone star, the Sirius star. You know, it just says it all in its name. So, yeah, I think we're definitely from the stars, even if it could be panspermia in the sense that like even if it wasn't like a higher technological spaceship that came with these beings and this ethereal stuff, it could have been consciousness and genetic memory that was on bacteria into something that blasted into the atmosphere. That's absolutely possible as well. Could have been fungus, could have been psilocybin, could have been something. I mean, I don't know. I don't fucking know, but I love to speculate. And I hope that I tried to go a little bit over a lot of different areas to try to answer that question because it's such a beautiful and big, deep question.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I love it. Uh, Personally, I guess I have a different outlook where, like, I cannot at all accept like the sort of endless universe. I feel more like it's like a cage that's not too big. Like,
Closed system.
yeah. So I thought of the stars more like, it's just lights in the ceiling kind of. But
Mm-hmm.
then the last couple of years, I've been like much more open to uh, them actually like having an influence. Like, it's just light, but light is information, right? And like everyone
Mm-hmm.
can clearly, like you can see like if the sunlight hits your body in the morning, it gets your like hormones right for your digestion and everything. Like everyone can see how important the sun is. So obviously the stars, like even though it's like fainter light, they should have like a very direct impact on your well-being, would like make sense. uh but excuse me, I just got a problem with the battery. 1 second, I'm about to
Oh,
run
no
flat.
worries. I'll riff on that just for a second too, because I love that. I mean,
uh,
philosophically, there it makes a lot of sense, right? Like, so I love magnets. I like to study magnets, the history of magnets, the lodestone, and there's this character that I also love called Tycho Brahe. He was a Swedish astronomer, one of the
Danish,
most
right?
famous astronomers of all time.
I
Yeah,
think.
Danish. Sorry. Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry.
uh,
Yeah, yeah.
I've been to the observatory when I
Terrible.
was a child. Yeah.
Yeah. What? You went to Uraniborg?
Yeah, it's like you're from Norway, it's not far. It's
That's so
Norwegians, like
cool.
all Norwegians like have like a couple of summer vacations in Denmark. Is like the liberal little paradise.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like
We had a
for most
Danish.
people, I guess it's
Oh, go ahead.
Legoland, but my parents took me to the Tycho Brahe Observatory. Yeah.
Really? Dude, that's so cool. So that model is, I mean, that kind of explains a lot of what sounds like what you believe, right? Like it's like a geocentric model, and these things happen to work around us. Like we are the lodestone, we are the magnet, and everything else is working on a magnetic realm. Like we are the powerful magnet, and all of these other, metals or magnetized substances are coming in and out of that, and that works. The beautiful thing about it is like if we can just strip away the ego that's tied to I'm a flat earther, so fuck you, you idiot, for being a globe earther, or I'm a globe earther, fuck you, you fucking idiot, you flatty. Like it's like, listen, there's actually
Nobody
everything
knows.
works in both of these models.
Nobody knows.
No, nobody knows, but everything works in both of these models in retrospect, right? Like a lot of, you could take the same philosophy and it'll actually work in both of them. So it's
I,
okay to
I
have
had a crazy
conversations and be like, hey,
experience
you know,
once when I was pondering this stuff. It's like back in 2016. I was working
ooh,
like
what a good year. What a good year.
at the time I had been booked to work with like a group of performance artists, and we were setting up a show on an island called Terschelling, which it belongs to the Netherlands, but it's like west of the Netherlands. So when you're on the west coast of the island, all you can see is like, it's ocean until you would reach America, right? Uh,
Mhm.
and we were working in the sand right, like really close to the beach, and we were watching the sunset. And this is it's not as far north as Norway, so this like the sunset is not super duper slow like it's up here where you have like very long uh, dim period like twilight in the summer.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not like Southern Europe where it's like it gets dark really fast. It's like somewhere in the middle, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're a group of people watching the
Super
sun.
cool, by the way.
And we're a group of people watching the sun go down over the ocean, and it's like very grayish, right? Because it's like twilight hour, and it's the sky and the ocean. They kind of fade into one another. And I was thinking of pondering it, but I wasn't like expecting any results. But I took up my laptop, like it's a MacBook, and I just opened like the photo program, the one that comes with the computer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Take it up, and I'm facing the ocean, and there is the sun in the photo. Like it's like a video, like you can see what you're filming, and then you press the button, it takes photos, right? So I take on my Mac, and I see the sun. Like we all saw the sun set 15 minutes ago. Like I look away from the Mac, the sun is not there. I look on the Mac, the sun is there. And I had two separate witnesses that are not like any kind of alternative people at all. Like come check this out. Yo, the sun is there, it's not there. And I have these photos still on my Mac, like they're time stamped. I'm sure you could check like that this is after sunset, but it's like clearly it was the same sun that we all saw like just 20 minutes earlier.
Wow.
Looks just like it. So that makes it really hard for me to believe that it could be behind a curve. So I wanted to ask you, like, if you've been doing like if you've had access to like more proper like stargazing equipment and stuff. You ever tried looking at the sunset like that, like seeing if you can catch
You know
the
what?
sun?
I haven't, but you bet your sweet ass I am going to, because that sounds fucking cool. That's nuts. I am moving back to Hawaii in 2 weeks. By moving, I'm going to go there for however long, 8-9 months to go finish
so you'll have like
some
similar
stuff.
conditions.
Yeah, and maybe we can chat again after I'm out there for a bit and kind of catch up on this topic, because super fascinating. And hey, even if you end up, taking your family out there, it might not be too expensive. You guys could come out. I'd love to give you guys a little volcano tour.
Wow.
Go check out the observatories, and maybe we can
Wow.
check this out for ourselves, man. Absolutely, no doubt.
We'll see what my economy holds.
I hope so. That'd be great. But dude, that's super fascinating. And
So I
there's the
also just
second.
wanted to bring up another point. It's not hard evidence of any kind, but for me philosophically, if you've ever seen like I'm looking for the words in English, like occultation of the sun or the moon, like when one goes above the other, right?
Eclipse.
Eclipse, yeah. Eclipse, sorry. So if you see an eclipse, you can see like the sun and the moon. I was catching myself. I don't want anyone to like have footage of me doing like the wrong hand signals because I'm paranoid myself. So I looked in the camera and I was like, oh gosh, someone's gonna freeze frame that. But if you have the sun and the moon, you can see how perfectly one fits above the other. They're like, as seen from Earth, they're like exactly the same size. And that sort of
Yeah.
in my mind, that lets me know that it's all designed to be viewed
Yeah.
from this perspective. Like this is the stage where that it all revolves around. Like clearly, to me, it's like it couldn't be random and be that perfect. Like
I agree, dude. It's insane. I mean, thinking about such a philosophical, deep conversation, and these points to bring up. So I'm gonna try to do justice on it. And it's like, so talking about these two different models. One's from the outside coming in. The other one's almost like from the inside blooming out. right? Like life started here and it slowly made its way until the point that it created its atmosphere, created this, or it happened all at once. That means design, right? Like there's design in the other sense too, but if you go off the evolutionary model and we came here from a big bang, it's more of design by how I guess just the rest of the universe and the cosmos would be made, right? Like that's that design in that model.
Yeah, it's like if you people can look up the Journal of Astrophysics where Mr. Hubble proposes the curvature of space.
Hmm.
And he will state it, I think it's number 9 from 1934. He will state it very blatantly that according to his observations, he felt like all the objects were moving away from Earth.
Hmm.
And if you believe in the Big Bang and you see all the objects moving away from the Earth, that would mean Earth was the center of the explosion, right?
Oh.
And that fucks up. And he states it very explicitly to avoid a unique position, which a unique position means like the Earth is something special in creation as opposed
Hmm.
to everything else. To avoid a unique position, we must introduce this curvature of space. So it's basically like an ideological project to make a religion without a creator, right? It's not
Yeah.
following the evidence. Uh,
Yeah, no. Yeah. Totally. And dude,
uh,
and that's fascinating too, thinking about how when you look into all of the different theories on the moon and how that came to be, if but most common denominators are that it's constituents of the Earth. And some theories say that it came from an impact and then sent that out there, but that's just so far fetched because it's just so perfect, right? But if it was created here on Earth and then sent out into the atmosphere, kind of like what China has been trying to do with emanating their fake sun, and things like that, that's actually not that out of the question, right? Thinking about how these huge architectural feats were created back in the day, with massive amounts of knowledge of physics, um, you know, like the pyramids and things like and this is a stretch, but I like talking about this kind of stuff. But like the moon itself, in theory, is what kind of brought us out of the golden age period, right? Like before the moon was there, we had this the equatorial zone was bigger, it was longer. We had more plasma and energy coming through. Everybody was giants. There was more atmosphere, more CO2 here. And then this dastardly, demonly thing called the moon came to be and took that away from the golden age period where everybody was just like living in a harmonious type. That's kind of like, it's kind of the vibe that has been put on by a lot of theorists, and philosophers and historians. Um, and it's really interesting to think that the moon could have been created here on the planet here as a huge job, as like one of these main goals of some king, some emperor or something, by one of our many species that have existed before us, by everything that's hidden on these artifacts underground and the floods and the deluges and the many catastrophes that have happened here on Earth, that the moon may have been very well created perfectly to even create something like an eclipse or to have some sort of magnetic property to be able to control the climate here on the Earth more. Things about climate control are very, very simple. It's not hard. Even churches knew that when they would toll the bells in a storm, if the storm was coming and gathering clouds, if they kept the bells tolling in the church towers, the resonance and the sound and the vibration of the bells and the sound itself would actually steer the clouds from the top of the tower, a lot of time drawing and making an opening in the sky. Dubai and other places have incredible weather manipulation that they're able to, like, hey, we want rain. Guess what? We know how to create rain. It's not out of the question. It's not a conspiracy theory. It is fact. It's just fact. Like, if anybody wants to debate that, be my guest. Go, like, just do a little bit of research. Go to National Oceanic Atmospheric Association and apply for one of these permits. Where if you're a corporation, you can actually have a cloud seeding operation in your geographic location if you have the money to pay for it. Anyways, I digress. But The moon, man. Like I really dig this topic, and these are the types of things that keep me in that geocentric mindset too, where I like to. I'm definitely not out of it, brother. I'm like fully in it. Like I fucking
No, for
love
me,
it.
it's like
I
I'm
love
not
it.
like heavily invested in any kind of camp, and like at the end of the day, there are like it's not binary either. Like you could imagine
Yeah,
several options. But as far as the moon, like I want to bring it back to the stars in a second, but
yeah.
uh, I don't know if you've been exposed to it, but I came across I think most fascinating theory really recently. It's from a Russian YouTube channel that's been gaining some wind called Vibes of Cosmos. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
Can you
Uh,
say it again? I'm sorry, my internet lagged out there for a second.
it's a Russian YouTube channel called Vibes of Cosmos,
Oh,
and he's also like he's like it's one of the coolest things I saw anyone do to like a preemptive strike against censorship. He put like all his info in a book, and he put the book in the info for a song that you can purchase at like name your price on SoundCloud. So you buy the song,
huh.
and in the info for the song you get the whole book with the whole like cosmology. I haven't looked like thoroughly into it yet, but he argues that it's like a light underneath that sort of shines through the earth, and it hits like I don't know if it hits like a surface or like an intersection between how light bounces, but he definitely argues that the moon is like sort of like a holographic representation of like light coming from beneath and shining through the earth. And when you check it out, you'll see him make the case that what they usually refer to as like the craters or whatever, like the darker parts of the
Mm-hmm.
moon,
Mm-hmm.
like when you see him make the case that that's actually a map of the earth, is the continents of the earth, like it's like a mirror reflection of the earth hanging up there. um he
Okay,
makes
first of all, next level.
yeah
Love it.
he
I just
makes the
followed
case
him on
very
YouTube
well.
while you're saying that. I went and
Yeah,
looked him up.
he makes a good case. Like it's a really interesting theory. This would
Mm-hmm.
correlate to what they call the black sun, right? Which is probably the source beneath.
Yeah. A
So
shadowy hologram. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
uh,
And have you heard of Crow 777?
absolutely, yeah. Followed for years.
So have you watched this documentary, Shoot the Moon?
No,
Me neither.
but I've
I
heard
need
him
to.
talk about it for like 20 hours. Like, so
Yeah, right. Yeah, yeah.
I'm not unfamiliar with it.
So that kind of theory too kind of ties into that. If like there's holograms, happening, then there would be times when there might be two, or
So
something right
for
behind it.
listeners who are unaware, Crow is a guy who's famous for filming something he called the lunar wave, which is like basically it looks like the someone just pressed refresh on the page, and pew,
Mm-hmm.
it just loads back in like, and apparently it's like not a camera glitch. Like several people have documented the phenomenon at this point, and it appears to be more frequent around the equinoxes, I understand. Uh, but to like bring it back to the stars for a second, because before I forget, like I loved your answer, but I also want to ask you, like, do you feel like you have like a personal relationship with stars? Like, do you communicate with the stars directly? Do you like talk to one about this thing and the other one about that, or
You know, I'm a very spiritual person, and but I'm not that perfect in the sense that I wish I was. I wish I had a cooler answer for you. I do go out, obviously, into the outside world at night, and I look up at the stars, and I'm fascinated. And boy, oh boy, have I seen some shit. uh, I've been trolled by some somethings. Like I don't know. Like the most recent experience I've had was I was walking outside, and I was like just coming out to the back here of the farm, and like so I'm like in a valley. So unfortunately, from where I'm at, like I'm up in the high mountains in a valley, and so the sun sets over the hill, right? Like, so I don't even get to see a sunset. It just like kind of is a silhouette behind some trees. And so I'm coming over and I see this big ass light. When I say big ass light, I mean like maybe double or 3 times the size of like a good sized star. So it's like, here's like a star. Okay, here's the light I saw, right? Like, so it's pretty. It's not like a ship right above me, but so I just saw it and I was just like, oh, sweet, like I can count things off of satellites. Like with the amount of number of satellites that they're saying that they're launching into the atmosphere, it's inevitable that like half the shit moving in the sky you're going to see is a satellite. And how they operate and move, but like
helium balloons.
I asked this thing if it was fucking with me because it started to move so slow that I was just like, is it moving? I can't tell if it's actually moving or not. And then I was just like, then I'm just in awe. I'm in wonderment. I'm just like looking at it, just kind of like, wow. Yeah, you're moving, but really slow. And then it just stops for a little bit. And I'm like, okay. So now I'm just sitting here and I'm like, now I was going to go do a task. I was on my way to go do something. And I was like, okay, well, like, I got to just watch this. I have to see what's going to happen. It just zooms off. It zooms off, goes this way. And then I shit you not, another little light comes out of the back of it. Like it went this way. Sorry, the camera's over here. It went this way. It was stopped here. It went boop, like really fast. And then this little tiny light went boop out of the back. I was just like, all right. And then it was gone. And I was just like, I don't know what the fuck I just witnessed. And so, yeah, man, I try to talk. I talk to the sky. I talk to myself. I try to communicate because I want to see things. I'm always inviting them to happen, and sometimes I'm in my own head. I'm like, oh, am I just being selfish? Like, why am I asking these things? They're not going to come to me because I'm not worthy of seeing a spaceship, right? Like, these are the weird contemplative shit I go through in my head. Like, why would they come to me? I'm fucking nobody, but then all these other people get abductee experiences. Maybe they don't have the fucking bloodline. Maybe they don't have the genetics. But yeah, I try to talk to them. Mainly trying to talk to some aliens, but the stars themselves, I think that'd be a really healthy practice to try to incorporate more of, me talking about ancestry and roots and history and things like that. Well, maybe it's like time to start talking to the gods again in the sky and having some spiritual experiences in that sense.
Because I haven't been paying a lot of attention to them, but until like quite recently. But I want to get into it. I just finished up the
Nice.
Star Lore book by Robert Taylor, and I'm working on the star names, their lore and meaning. They're both like classics from around the turn of the last century, and I feel like if you're like a little bit into the alchemical way of viewing things, you like correlate the planets to different elements and stuff, then it would only make sense for the stars also, I think, to like have some influence, right? And maybe connected to like certain substances or vibes.
Yeah.
I was thinking if you like, a lot of alchemists would say like they correlate like different planets with different substances, right? They'll say like Saturn is lead or Mars is iron, right? Usually when you see people talk about it, they'll say corresponds to or something like that, which is like a little more diplomatic. Your friend Benjamin Balderson, whose work I also follow.
Nice. I feel like I'm seeing him tomorrow.
Cool. I feel like he will say like very explicitly like Mars is iron. Like I if I understand him correctly, I feel like his view is that it's like physically made of iron. Like that's what it is. But then at the same time, iron can also like have like a spirit, and a certain personality and a vibe to it, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So I was wondering, like, with astrology, which like I've always like just known about astrology, but never cared about it until recently, and I'm like very beginner, so I'm not gonna say that I understand it at all. But I was thinking, like, if Mars is iron or rules iron or whatever, and something happens, like if I had an astrologer, like look at my natal chart, and she would tell me like, okay, Mars is in a spot that's like more or less beneficial for you, like the next week or whatever. Maybe what's happening, like say Mars is in like a bad spot for you in the coming month. If the astrologer tells me that, I'm thinking maybe what's happening is that Mars is having like a negative impact on the iron in my body.
Mm.
If the iron is like more sort of agitated, then that'll affect me, right? And the reason Mars has an effect on me might be because it affects the iron, and the iron is part of me. Now, if this theory was to be correct, then I would assume for the stars to be influencing like other material, because clearly you're not like made up of only like 7 substances, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But the stars are just as numerous as the substances, so potentially there could be like one for each, right?
So let's look at Vedic astrology. Vedic is ancient Indian astrology. So I have teeth problems, and I'm healthy as anyone you know. Trust me, like I love it. I love embodying true health, hot yoga, food, all the things. Still have still have teeth problems. Like I had a tooth fall out of my mouth, right? Like what? How the fuck did that happen? Like I'd be bro. I don't even use terrible toothpaste. I'll use bentonite clay toothpaste with ionized silver. Like I use good shit. And so it's yeah, it's so I was like, okay, let me dig a little bit deeper into this. Like, let me find out if there is some sort of astrological significance to this. Like, why am I be experiencing this? Turns out that yeah, our ancient ancestors thousands of years ago had correlations to the metals and the planets in these bodies. And what's really interesting about the planets, right, is that there's, they say there's 9, there's 7, there was 5, right, so on and so forth. But a lot of times we can just correlate to us having 9 chakras or 7 chakras, and there's the 7 main primaries, and that these could correlate to different energy centers in your body. And they do, and a lot of times through alchemy, through astrology, through yoga, and things like that. And if you were born with in your birth chart with certain planets in certain areas, you might be prone, and astrologists can tell you this. I really wish my partner from Moon Mysteries was here, Kaylee Bracana, so she could actually supremely nerd out and give you like a fully in-depth answer. But what I can say is that your intuition is spot on, because our ancestors have accumulated that. You can look it up. You can look up astrological health significance, or what do these planets rule in the body. And Saturn is bone and teeth, and I have so much Saturn going on, and Saturn interruptions in my chart. And so yeah, it's super fascinating. And it's like, okay, now are we talking philosophy? Are we talking astronomy? Like, what are we talking about here? Are we talking about the actual planets that have a correlation? Are we talking about substances in the body? Are we talking about magnetic ley lines on the earth? Like, what are we talking about here? That's where these
I would assume at least that
decipherments.
like different qualities of light could affect you in different ways and affect like different areas of your being.
But just like UV light does, right? Sunlight, moonlight, LED, whatever. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Which so just kind of a little bit off topic, but not really. But uh, there's a lot of theories, and I have a few books on this. I love Hollow Earth theory. I love the thought of the Hopi people, the indigenous cultures of America on the East Coast, talked about there being an ant people that receded from the mounds and receded from the land. The Tuatha De Danann of the ancient Celts, right? They were such terrible. Actually, what we're going into this month on the Rising from the Ashes is all that stuff, and we're talking actual smart people about it. But they went to the earth inside, so there's all this lore of there being an internal society. And think about that light, the internal light of the internal fire of the belly of the planet, and how that type of information I might hold, especially if we think of ascension as going up and ascending into the cosmos. But what if ascension is going into the earth and going deeper into the mineral levels and the mineral consciousness? Because what do we know about crystals? What do we know about quartz and conductive materials that we mine from the planet? We don't go and get these things from space. Well, granted, they have talked about getting different meteors, and you can go and get all this rare minerals from meteors, and people do that, billions of dollars of rare minerals. But you know what I mean? So it's we have the abundance here on Earth. And so are these different planets locations of different mines, of different mineral composites here on these special places that are magnetically drawn on the face of the planet? Something I have absolutely thought of before. What if the moon isn't a physical place, like you brought up? Thank you. About a hologram. But what if it's a location here on Earth, a base, maybe a silver mine, a super silver deposit somewhere, and what energy is emanating from a gold mine? What energy is emanating from a silver mine, a copper mine? What energies are emanating here? And is there going to be planetary representatives there? Is there going, you know what I'm saying? So it's a huge, huge, huge thing. And I think you're right. And I highly recommend people start to look into their astrological health charts to see if any of the things that they have that are wrong with their bodies or whatever correlate to what their chart says, because then that might be able to put some more clues into people and their association with the stars and the planet.
Yeah, I would assume if you had teeth problems, then it would be whatever's related to calcium and magnesium.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing is so you might need to, I need to supplement more with these things, way more, way more. And
I think a lot of times
my diet is heavy calcium.
Yeah, it's not about calcium in the diet. It's first of all, if you're good on the D3, so you have the proper calcium uptake, then it's about the K2. If you have proper D3, so you take up the calcium, it just goes into your blood. And then the K2, which is, I think, almost certainly the ingredient that Weston Price would call activator X. But it's if you're familiar with Weston Price.
I've heard of Weston Price, so I haven't digged too much deeper into his work.
He was he traveled all across the world to try to map out what healthy people had in common. It's very interesting. But anyways, if you're lacking in K2, which a lot of people are, then the calcium will be just go into your blood. Your veins can calcify, but the K2 is what is supposed to actually deliver it to where the building block should be used. And the K2 is you basically get it mostly from fermented food.
Kimchi. My favorite.
Yeah, kimchi, or get your Roquefort blue cheese or natto, or but yeah, it's good to have some
natto. Do you have natto up there? Do you guys have access to that?
Yeah, we have it's Norway's people are willing to pay for stuff. It's things. It's everything's pricey here, so it's people want to export stuff to Norway. We have access to everything. It's, yeah. Well, you can get natto. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. No, that's super cool. I think. Yeah, it's we eat to what's geographic to our location. I think that's important, but also at the same time, I think you need to Humans are naturally nomadic, and we need to eat things from all over the planet, you know? At least try,
Personally, I
at least
wouldn't eat
try. And
natto,
I,
or like I don't eat any kind of oh fuck, looking for the word in English. Legumes?
legumes, yes.
Legume, yeah.
Yep.
I don't think they're for human consumption really, but that's my
Yeah,
opinion.
yeah, I heard there's a lot about lectins in the legumes, like it's pure lectin, which is just like, which is
Yeah,
why if you are going to eat it fermented, because that might be the only way it can actually digest in your body.
yeah, it'll give you that
Uh,
LGS, leaky gut syndrome,
yeah, yeah,
from the
exactly.
lectin. And I think just like it makes sense. Like if you have to pick it, then soak it in water for 24 hours and then like boil it for 4 hours, then it's not
Yeah.
for human consumption. Like it's
Straight up. Yeah,
yeah.
no, that I was just talking about this the other day. It's like most really, really heavy nutritional herbs and foods a lot of times are roots, right? Like dandelion root, or you know, the sweet potato, the carrot, the beet. Like you can eat the greens and that's absolutely fine, but the actual substance comes from the root. And you know, it's funny, those aren't exposed to the sun. And I think there's something to that. Like we were just talking about the energy from inside the earth. Yeah, that's what you're getting. You know, you're getting this never seen the sun beetroot that you're eating that's full of vitamins. This is like, whoa, like beets
That's
are
cool.
insane.
It's cool. I always
You
thought about
know,
it differently because there's like I feel like it's if you imagine someone who's like snorkeling, you know,
yeah. Yeah, yeah,
they still
yeah.
need
Yeah.
the air, right? It's still
Yeah.
the air they can breathe. And I feel like that's the leaf sticking up. Uh, like they still need the sun.
Super fascinating. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And so maybe, well, okay, so when I said earlier, like eat around the world, like you don't have to necessarily eat Japanese food once a week, but you know, maybe the colors, back to the colors. You want to have a rainbow diet, you know, you want to have the beets and the carrots and your greens and your yellows, like, you know, just try to have a varied diet. Like I know a lot of people where, you know, they're only eating barbecue, right? Like you go down South America, not South America like Brazil, but like southern states where they're heavy, you know, I mean, like, obesity rates are like fucking huge, and they're just only eating like salty barbecue all day, one color food, and then potato salad, macaroni salad, you know, this shit. You're just like, okay, so, you know, I see the colors, and then what does their body is emanate? They emanate a single source color thing, you know. You look at these really healthy people and you start to say, oh well, you're taking spirulina and you know, you're doing blue and green, all these things, you know, like the colors. I think we need to have the primary colors in our diet. And what do the primary colors represent? But planets, minerals, right? And here we are back again to the stars.
I think that
uh
makes perfect sense, like philosophically, like when you say it, it's like I like in a way I completely agree. But at the same time, like being Norwegian and like also like
yeah.
for many generations, you know, it's stuff doesn't grow up here for like 8 months a year. Like you couldn't possibly be like a Norwegian vegetarian, or like it's like in the winter people would eat like salted meats or
Hmm.
fish, or you know, something that's like preserved. But it would be very hard for someone to keep like a rainbow diet in like January in Norway, right?
Yeah, unless it was all imported, right? Well, here's another fascinating thing. I mean, yeah, philosophically, like it would be beautiful if you can just like in a perfect world, like have all these things, you know. Um, and I really want to ask you, after I have get off this little tangent of what like are some like really cool native Norwegian foods that I might not know about. I know you guys do a lot of salted fish and like a lot of fish, which obviously I you can survive off of like fish alone. Like that's incredible, incredible healthy food. Um, but so there's things that the earth consciousness provides in areas that will blow your mind that are going to help you in those areas for those geographic locations, like the maca root, for example. Maca root is an incredible adaptogen, and it grows on like high mountain ranges, like super high altitude. It doesn't grow anywhere else. Well, what does it do to the human body when you eat it? It pumps your blood full of oxygen so you can be at high altitudes and not have a hard time breathing. So it's like, you know, it's provided, like, look at where you are geographically in that area, and if you are in tune, you know, our indigenous ancestors were in tune to what to eat in that area because they would talk to nature and deal with nature in a completely different way. So yeah,
Yeah, I
absolutely.
assume if it grew closer to the sea level, then it might make you a bleeder if you ate it.
Yeah, yeah. You know, I so one time I was really into juicing for a while, like green juices. I was working at a juice and smoothie shop and cafe, and I was just able to just make all these juices. I was doing like cabbage, jalapenos, habaneros, kale, collard greens, everything. Like fucking whatever I could throw in the juicer, I was throwing in there. And it was gross a lot of the time. Like a lot of them smelled terrible. But I was doing a lot of kale juice because I was actually working on a farm as well, and I was growing a lot of these greens. And I was like, healthy, right? Like green juice. Yeah, man. You know, fucking like hippie over here, fucking, you know, like not knowing anything. And I was drinking all these green juices. I go down to the ocean, right? And I swim all the time. I surf, I swim, all these things. Get in the ocean, my eyes are burning from the water. Your eyes are naturally saline. Like you should be able to open your eyes in clean ocean water and not have any effect. But what happened is I depleted my iodine levels in my body so much that it was actually starting to leach out all these different things from my blood and from my organs to the point that where my eyes were not saline anymore. So I was completely going the opposite. I thought I looked good. I was having all this crazy energy. I was just like, I mean, fuck. People think I'm energetic now. It's like, look at me when I was green juicing and I was 24 years old. I was just like next level, dude. Like about to rip out of my skin. But yeah, dude, it was just like I detrimented myself by doing that. You know.
Kale is also like for Norwegians as grønnkål. It's kind of a newer thing. Like it wasn't around like that when I was little, and it's been quite heavily promoted. And it's very heavy in, I think in English you'd call it oxalic acid.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Oxalic acid. Yeah.
yeah, which is quite detrimental. So I don't think it's at all like the superfood it's made out to be.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you could definitely go down a conspiratorial route and look at where these foods actually started getting their promotion and why. Um, I think it's okay to supplement. There's a little bit of oxalic acid that is actually going to be beneficial for you. And I think that's kind of why it was like a garnish at a lot of times. You know, it was just kind of like, hey, have this little piece of kale. It's going to give you just that little bit of extra that you need. Um, but yeah, like definitely be careful with a lot of these you know, health regimes that are getting pushed out. Like get some blood work, go to a natural path, and start speaking with your actual healers in the area to to help you find out what like your body needs. Because even going back to the ancient Vedas again, I love ancient Indian Hindu mythologies and stuff. It's super cool. And also some of the oldest texts that we have like in such detail. And yeah, there's different body types, and in Hindu there's the three different body types and what your dosha is and what you should eat. Some people are sustained really well off of eating cold food, like their body actually digests better with cold food. Some people need hot food. So, you know, it's all different. And that's why it's just like you're out here and everybody's promoting these mushrooms, medicinal mushrooms. Like, oh my God. It's like, well, if you're fucking taking, you know, reishi and chaga every single day in your morning cup of coffee, you know, like for some people that's going to be really great, but not everybody. So we need to be careful as a society to like see what's being promoted on a level. Maybe we should start promoting on a big level of like, hey, not every diet's good for everybody, but what would that do to a product, right? if you're a product that sells that one thing, well, you're like, well, I just eliminated 2/3 of the population that are never going to buy my stuff from me. So, that's just the world that we live in. We live in a capitalist society that is starting to take over the entire world. Through the Protestant Reformation, that switch of the church in Europe, and the Renaissance period of the 16th century, like you really started to see like a shift in a swath, and I hate to say it, man, but like the modern English language, the creation of that was brought on by some big time esoteric players that know a lot about the different labyrinths and archetypes that are tied behind these important sigils. You know, like the
Yeah.
runes, like
Shout out Sir
it's
Francis.
yeah, right. Yes, exactly. Francis Bacon, you son of a bitch. It's a love hate with that guy. Like I like to study his work, but I'm also like, what was he up to? Like I still haven't determined whether or not like they were up to like some good or they were up to some evil. I think they were. I actually do think they were a little bit on the lighter side. And then they were battling up like people like King James, because King
I'm
James and
usually
Francis
like
Bacon.
very, very like at least in my history, I've been like very, what do you say, cynical. Like I tend to see this like the powerful persons of history in a nefarious light, but I'm like a little bit undecided when it comes to like Sir Francis Bacon and the Count de Saint Germain, because
Mm-hmm.
they're like sort of both of them like,
Kind of toe that line.
yeah, it's hard to like and it's hard to know like how harsh are you going to be with the guilty by association thing.
Mm-hmm.
uh, um I sometimes feel that way about Manly P Hall too, like it's just hard to know like
I know. I know.
where where you're
Discernment.
really coming from, and like how could someone put out a book like The Secret Teachings at 28 and then it says finished writing it at 25. It's like,
Yeah.
how do you have the fucking time to accumulate that by 25? Like
Yeah,
it's
it's
almost,
insane.
yeah. uh it makes you want to think it's like a cover story, but when you hear him lecture, it's like
Mm-hmm.
clearly he knows the stuff. It's not like just a figurehead. uh,
In the story of how Manly P. Hall got all that information, got traveled around the world is through money. So
yeah, but
it's a
that
tough
money,
one.
the money is after the book, The Secret Teachings. The traveling and the accumulation of books and stuff, that's after he put out The Secret Teachings. So it's not
Hmm.
like the material in the book is accumulated by the travels. His personal
Hmm.
library was accumulated by the travels. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah, I have to look more into like his actual family. I don't know anything about his lineage. That's the problem. I obviously love Manly P. Hall's work, and but with discernment, right? Like I love it for
yeah,
researching,
and it
looking at
seems very
multiple
like
landscapes.
when he was divorced at one point, and it seems that there has been like an effort from uh, Palmer Hall and maybe some cohorts to like almost erase the woman he was married to. It's very hard to find out anything.
Ah, yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I hear you. I hear
So
you.
clearly he's like very conscious of how he comes across.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but this is getting
Yeah, we're getting
far
into it
from
right now. Yeah.
far from where I wanted to. But the last thing I wanted to ask you about is picking up from your first reply uh, about dreaming. You said you usually like start the day by recollecting your dreams. A lot of people who are into cannabis have a hard time remembering dreams. It seems to not be an issue for you.
Sorry, I had to let a little bit extra light in. It was getting a little dark in here, and then the sun's out.
Ah, no
Um,
problem. But you heard the question?
yeah, yeah, I did. So actually, yeah, I feel like so a practice that I do at night is I turn off my phone. I turn it off. I don't turn it on airplane mode. I unplug my Wi-Fi router. I try to turn off any electronics in the room, and I'm pretty good at dreaming at this point. And a practice that you guys can do, highly recommend this for anybody. Please, please, please do this. When you're lying in bed, breathe and consciously create a safe environment for you to dream. But I really feel like the Wi-Fi router is a big one. Ever since I started turning off my Wi-Fi router at night, oh my God, like the vividness started to come in. It wasn't just crazy dreams. It was like, because I was having dreams with the Wi-Fi on and all these electronics on, but it was like now they're fucking vivid. And like now I'm seeing more intrusive details and things. So yeah, I think cannabis actually can help you dream even more. But I think that when it comes to conscious dreaming, because that's what it is, you're connecting deeper into yourself. Dreaming is more of you than the reality that we are when we're out in society, because we're being affected by outside and external influences. When you're dreaming, that's all you. That's all you.
We don't really know that. You're still connected to everything else. So.
Yeah, that's facts, right? So you might be going on like a whole other journey, but still in that sense, you have control of at least how you put yourself to sleep. So, you might not be able to have control that you think in the dreams, but the more you start to dream and be conscious in them, you actually start to have more control in your dreamscape. And the more you start to recollect and connect with that part of yourself, then you start to be able to have that more. And so it, like we were saying earlier, it's not easy to start these things. And the practice is a practice. You have to keep it going. It's a constant revolvement. But that's how I do it. That's how I do it. I try to breathe. I try to talk to myself. I say, I want to have dreams tonight. I want to have dreams. I want to just, I don't like necessarily need any specific answers, whatever's there. And I just want to remember them. And I want to, because in that sense, it's like you're never really sleeping, you're always awake. You're always awake. And,
you might be more awake in a sense.
Yeah, I love it. So I really just highly recommend people try it. I'm really curious to see what more people experience when they start to turn off their routers and electronics, just because we're so used to it in our lives that it's not a big deal when those things are on. They don't make any noise, right? So it's just like, whatever. But try it out.
I'm a little bit paranoid about it. So I have a router with like a on-off switch.
Yep.
So I can sit close to it and use the cable. But if I have to like remove myself from it, then I can turn on the Wi-Fi. So I usually sleep with it off. It's like if I go to bed before my wife or daughter, I have to like try to intensely remind them because they couldn't care less. But I always had like a hard time remembering dreams. I want to work on that and get like I decided for myself that 2023 will be like a year of sort of conquering the dream space for me. But I've had like a theory that like because regarding what I said earlier about lifestyle habits making it harder to dream, I had a theory that this is because the plant sort of it makes reality more dreamlike.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, I like that.
So you sort of spend your dreaming during the day almost. Because it's like it deplete. I'm talking about like physical depletion of a hormone or whatever, right?
Yeah, so chemicals. So
you're
absolutely.
like
glands. Yeah.
When you go to bed, you sort of spent a lot of your dreaming already during the day, like because it'll make you like see the similarities between waking life and dreaming life more, right?
Yeah, and
like you're so sort of almost bringing the dream-esque consciousness into waking life. I feel like absolutely.
Yeah, I can attest to that.
So I've wondered if that's like what sort of deprives you from the dreaming, because you like it's like kind of like you can't have both. I've been thinking
Yeah.
But clearly you seem to be having both.
Yeah, no, I mean, it definitely won't stop you from dreaming. I think there's, glands are something that we need to, oh God, we're almost out of time and we're just getting into some more juice. But, you know, uh, gland health is super important. And yeah, when you go to sleep, you're working on a completely different physiological level. And so, like, your glands are secreting different chemicals and everything. So, there are things, certain foods and diets and stretches specifically. Actually, you can just do it without food if you just are doing the right type of body attunements and stretching, breathing practices. That'll allow those certain sleeping organs and glands and everything to secrete more of those beautiful chemicals that you need to help you have a better night's sleep. And whether that means no dreaming at all, so you can have a really good night's sleep. Sometimes people are like, "Oh my God, I slept so good, I didn't have any dreams." But I'm like, sometimes I sleep so good when I do have dreams. You know, everybody's different, and it's like, everybody's quote unquote mission here is different in reality. You know, like whether we're here to create a family and to know love, whether we're here to dive deep into Gnosticism and whatever. Like everybody's journey is beautiful, and I don't ever want to belittle anybody else's experiences by saying that they should do anything, but I'm open to other people's practices as well, so I will gladly share things that I think help me and can possibly help other people. And um, I'm super curious about everything, man. So it's like I just love it all, and I really appreciate this time with you, brother. This has been a great chat, man. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you so much for doing it, man. And wishing you a blessed week.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. Yeah. Hope to make it out to Norway at some point. I got to see that infamous seed bank of Bill Gates that's like lodged in a mountain somewhere.
The seed bank is at Svalbard, is not mainland Norway.
Yeah, it's
So
the island north, right?
yeah, you would be like yeah, that's like a pretty remote destination. Yeah, it would not it would not commonly be a part of your Norway experience. But I will of course gladly host you anytime. Uh, if you're if you want to, when we wrap up this conversation right now, you can Google Vigelandsparken as Vigelands Parken, Park, En, all in one word. Is in Oslo, not too far from where I live. You being someone who's into symbolism, I think you might want to go there. It's like
Oh,
it's a huge sculptural park, and it's highly esoteric. Um, yeah, you'll see pictures.
yeah, I'm down. Oh, one more time too before we get off. I want to say I know there's some mixed feelings a little bit about the Bach saga. Um,
Oh
because it's
fuck, no, man. I won't take too much of your time, but you just opening up that now, you're gonna have to do like 5 more minutes. I'll have to give you a new link, all right?
yeah, let's do
You
it.
can't
I'm
just
down.
mention the
We
box saga at the last minute.
Okay, I wanted to bring it up. I wanted to bring it up. So
I will not take too much of your time, but I'll send you a new link right away, all
let's
right?
do it. Let's do it. I'm down.
All right, so we were about to wrap it up, and Roman was about to present some final thoughts, and they apparently involve the Bach saga. For those of my listeners who don't know, I'll just preface this by saying the Bach saga is like a creation myth coming out of Finland that was promulgated by a guy, Eeyore Bach, who was alive not too long ago. And he claimed to be from a line of like basically direct line of descent from the first two people. And I'm not 100% sure if it's the first two of all people or if it's like the first two Nordic people. But anyways, they claim that humanity, or at least their people, emerged from like a hole in the ground close to Helsinki. And this is referred to as the Bach saga. It was popularized after Eeyore Bach's death by an American guy named Jim Chesnar, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's just a little background because a lot of people listening to my podcast might not be familiar with it. But take the stage, Roman.
Well, I'm no Box Saga expert by any means, but it is such a fascinating story. My podcast partner Dan is is way deep into it, and he's enlightened me on a lot of it, and it is super fascinating because when you take this story of the Box Saga and tie it up to all these other ancient stories, like they really do line up, and it's fascinating because right when I first opened, or right when we first got on, it was just, I was like, yeah, like the North is really interesting. It seems to have a lot of ties to the origin stories of our species in a lot of ways. Like there's whether or not it's like the red-haired giants that have basically been the superseders of all these other civilizations all around the world, right? That we hear about in South America and Egypt and China, red-haired giants like that, I don't mean like giants like, ooh, but it's your people, man. Like you guys have those genes in which the superseders are generally basically a lot of times correlated to. And I just wanted to before we got off, like let people know that the other Norwegian person that we had talked to is Joachim Hagström. And he actually worked with Jim Chesnar. And he is he's
Joachim
like
Hagström.
yes.
It sounds a little more Swedish than Norwegian, but
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, dude, if I got those two mixed up.
it could definitely be a Norwegian guy with a Swedish last name. But yeah.
Yeah, he might actually be Swedish, and I'm sorry everybody if I'm just a classic American just smushing all the, you know what I mean? Like even just living on the west coast of the
Norway's like the little brothers who were like used to it.
well, it's like living here on the west coast, like you
Swedish
forget
people don't get
about.
called Norwegian. Usually, it's the other way around. But
Oh, really? But for me, I really I love Norway as something special. I don't know what it is about it that seems to have. There's just something about Norway and Norway. Sorry, I want to not say it so just terribly American, but that it's just so special. It just seems so special. Like I know it when I speak about it, when I hear it, that there's something special about Norway that is beyond the mainstream belief, and I love that. I want to dig deeper into that. And so anybody that you can share that we can talk to on our show that can enlighten us on that would be great, because this first part of the year we're diving into the ancient Irish and ancient Scotland and Celtic and Gaelic mysteries, and we're going to work our way all around Northern Europe around these times, and then slowly make our way to the Protestant Reformation and the takeover of the church, and that whole thing into the
cool.
1600s.
So one line that I think you might find interesting to pursue, that I've never heard like any of the American guys who discuss the Bach saga ever bring this up. I'm not sure if anyone knows or if Eeyore Bach knew, but the like I will say up front that I don't know the Bach saga like in great detail. I haven't like actually read books. I have like I watched the Jim Chesnar documentary that he put out, and like when back in the day when he was first featured on the Higher Side chats that at that time I used to listen to.
Oh yeah.
I was like fascinated by it, but I feel like my impression, like there may be differences that I'm not aware of, but the feeling I get now when I look at it is almost like they just made like a Finnish version of what's known as Ynglingeætten. And Ynglingeætten is the original line of kings, which this is like mainstream history. So the kings in Norway and Sweden that would there was like the original line of kings way back in the day. They would claim descent from the gods, like from Odin. and this is an actual real family named Ynglingetten. Is the line of kings from Norway from 1030 when Norway was united. It's a little disputed whether their claim to like membership of the Ynglingetten is actually true or not, because the Ynglingetten kings is like a little earlier. But the mythology of the Ynglingetten with claiming descent from the gods, it reminds me a lot of the Bach saga. And so I don't know, like when I hear the American people talk about it, they never mention that this is like a very common belief in Norway and Sweden. Like 1,500 years ago, everyone knew that the king descends from Odin. And also, when the Chesnar, I don't know, is he still alive?
Jim Chesnar's, I don't think he is still alive, unfortunately.
But he used to do like a lot of like linguistical gymnastics. And try to like he would use etymology to sort of make his case, and he would always refer to something he called the root language. Like he would say, in the root language, this means that, blah blah blah. He was always talking about the root language. Now,
yeah, that was his big thing.
Yeah. Now, when I saw this, I was baffled at how amazingly similar this root language is to a language called non-Norwegian. Like I master it. It's like it's not the main Norwegian language, but it's like a second official language. It's the main written language of like 5% of Norwegians. And non-Norwegian is not an organic language. It was like created for kind of national romantic purposes. So there was a guy who would travel the whole country and like pick up little bits and pieces of dialect from here and there and make like a language of it, because they wanted to have like a Norwegian language, because Norway was occupied always. So for most of our history we've been occupied, right? So people were forced to speak Danish. So Norwegian language is kind of like hillbilly Danish, and they wanted to make like a more sort of Norwegian language. So he made this amalgamation of different Norwegian older dialects. That language is called non-Norwegian, and it's incredibly similar to what Chesnar calls the root language. Very, very similar. I've been wishing I could tell one of you American researcher guys about this. Like I tried to message Mario Garza about it once, but I don't think he saw it.
Well, I can get us all on a show together if you're interested in that. No doubt.
I don't really know much more than I've already told you, but yeah, non-Norwegian is incredibly close to the root language, and I don't know if that like lends credence, because you could see that as it lends credence, because it would, the guy who made non-Norwegian would look at like what's common for like a lot of different dialects that have been like living in isolated regions, right, and make an amalgamation. So it would make sense if there's a root language that it would be kind of like non-Norwegian. But it's weird because it's Finnish is nothing like this. Like Finnish has like almost nothing in common with Scandinavian language.
What about Icelandic?
Icelandic is Norwegian, like it's
old Scandinavian, yeah.
Icelandic is like old Norwegian, like it's the way we would have spoken if we weren't always occupied and forced to speak Danish. But Iceland was probably, the settlers were Norwegian, right? So anyways, Finnish is like nothing at all like the root language. And when I look at the Bach saga, I feel like there's no explanation for why the root language would be so different from Finnish. Like, where does the Finnish language that they speak today come from? There's no explanation for this in the Bach saga. But if it's like just a copy of the Ynglingetten saga, it makes complete sense for the root language to be like Norwegian, right? Like,
spot on.
Because it sounded like Chesnar was unaware that almost everything he was saying, it was pretty much non-Norwegian.
Wow, that's super fascinating, and I think you're right. Like that's what happens with a lot of Well, there's billions of people on the planet, so it's like it's hard to make sure you're getting all of your information correct, because really when you think about it, there's so many pages unturned. Even if you're decades into your research, there's still going to be somebody who's going to come with a piece of the puzzle that's going to change everything that you've studied so far at every time. And yeah, that'd be really fascinating to get into. If you, I mean, we don't have to do it like within this next week or nothing, but if you did want to just talk more about it and give more insight to some of these researchers, that I would be awesome, and I could set that up. These are all really good friends of mine: Mario, Dan, Andy Rouse from Deep Share. We can even get Joachim on too. So potentially he's kind of a little bit more harder to get a hold of. He there was a little situation that happened, but anyways, it's super fascinating, man. And I wouldn't see why there wouldn't be a connection. I mean, obviously, like geographically, they're so close together, so it makes sense, right? That they would like share very similar like origin stories.
Yeah, it's just weird because Odin, he's like
Mm-hmm.
part of the Norwegian sort of universe, right?
Mm-hmm.
The is not part of like what you would call the Finnish pantheon at all. Like they
Yeah,
had different myths and different gods, and it's like everything in the Bach saga is
almost
it.
more.
It would make sense for it like Norway and Sweden was like kind of more of one culture. It's not like a hard border at the time, but it's like it would make a lot of sense if the Bach saga was placed in Norway or maybe Sweden.
Yeah,
But
yeah, I get that vibe very
when it's
much.
placed in Finland, it's just a whole mystery where the if okay, so if this is the origins, where does the Finnish culture come from then? Because clearly the language, the root language that they're talking about in the Bach saga, we damn near speak it. Like a Finnish person, to him, that's just like random sounds.
Mm-hmm.
And like if you look at the stories of the old gods, like if they were actual persons, you would have to conclude that they lived in Norway. Like there's mountains and coasts, and uh, yeah, it's a little weird to me. Like where does Finnish culture come from if the Bach saga is correct?
Well, we're dedicating an entire month or two to that specific topic here coming up in the middle part of the year, because it's, yeah, like there's all like, I mean, even just Germanic culture, right? Like all throughout Europe, like that was big on Odin. Like it was big on all that a lot of this canon and pantheon as well. Uh, and but then between where it spread down here to Southern Europe, you had in the middle of that, you had all these other beautiful cultures that were happening and doing their own divinatory practices and had their own pantheon of gods and deities and such. And then it's like, the huge thing of the Tuatha De Danann, like it's where, so there has to be a tie that brings all of them together into one story, because we are all on the same planet, right? So we all have these different ideas and stories of how we got here, but there has to be a root connection to all of it. And that's kind of like what I think we're doing slowly, especially in the podcast realm, through being able blessed enough to talk to anybody around the world. Is like we're like, okay, let's dust off these shelves and really like take a look at it. And like we're not disconnected anymore. We're all connected now. Now we can start to be like, hey, you tell us please everything you know, and we'll tell you everything we know. Like, let's fucking figure this stuff out. It is time to not sit back anymore. We need to get this shit going, so we can get on with it and get it off. It's like dealing with that bullshit that you had early on in your life. You got to shake it off, man. Now let me ask you this. Since this has been a fun little extra tidbit here on the end. So in American culture, so in Western esotericism and Western occultism and studies of that practice, there seems to be a lot of Odin worship. Now, if you look at the capital of Washington, D.C., in the rotunda of that building, there is a huge painting in the rotunda, right, which is like the top part of this building, which is, it's an old style architecture that holds massive amounts of symbology. And in there you have George Washington, who was a known member of the Freemasons, huge huge proprietary of the first lodge here, some of the first lodges here in the States. It's no secret, right? Obviously. And he is symbolized as Odin riding on the rainbow, going through this bridge basically to the center of the Oculus. And there's a lot of Odin symbolism going deep into a lot of American roots. And so that's really fascinating because that's not talked about. But then now, hundreds of years later, after the founding of this country, crazy, ridiculous American states, now we have shows like Vikings, and people are, they're so deep into the Viking lore and all this, and they're kind of shouting as if they know what they're talking about. But I feel like, I want to get your opinion on what is it bastardization, or is it showing any sort of homage to the true Nordic way and beliefs or anything like that?
I'll be so honest as to say I don't know, and I don't really think anyone knows. Like, it's crazy how good they've been at severing our ties
Really?
to our history.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
absolutely. In Norway, there's at least like spiritually, I would say people have almost no connection to it, but at least Norwegians culturally do have some sort of connection, which, like, if you go to like Sweden or Denmark, or in Sweden there's a little bit, but if you go to like Denmark or Germany, it's like hard to find a trace of anything, right? You'll drive through drive through Denmark for like 6 hours, and it's like they have a little sign by the road that says like historical Viking memory, and it's like a little piece of a wall or whatever. It was like, if you're Norwegian, like 100 dudes named Thor something, a couple guys named Odin, a woman named Freya, a dude named Brage.
Really? That's pretty cool.
Yeah, there's still like common names. And you grow up, go to the museum, see the actual big Viking ships, and it's like, from where I'm right now, the closest ancient mound for Thor worship is just as close as the local church, and and that
Christian church.
Yeah. So the old mounds are everywhere, just like the churches, kind of. So I feel like there's at least more of an sort of like an opportunity maybe to connect here if you're like spiritually inclined, because there are at least like physical relics and stuff. But I wouldn't say there's anyone in Norway who can like authoritatively, is that the word? Like say what the actual practice was. I mean, Norway was christened by force, right? And the writings of like Snorre Sturlason and people is after the christening, right? These are people who have like a Christian allegiance, and it's very hard to know, like, is he writing this down to preserve it so that Christianity won't like completely erase it, or is he writing it down to sort of skew it? You can't really know how authentic it is, and the Snorre Sturlason is very like historical, but it's not like it won't tell you about the actual spiritual practice from the mindset of a practitioner, right? Because he's like a monk. So I think it's very hard to know. Like something might have like survived underground, but I would be very surprised, because if you find like modern renditions, it's more like most of it is like cheesy, and some of it is like right-wing sort of quasi-religiousness. Uh, but
Yeah, that's super real here too in the States.
I think if you would want to connect with Odin or Thor now, you would want to like look upwards or inwards, but not to like a book or a scholar.
Word, I love that. I love that. That's beautiful.
But yeah, I'm very much undecided personally. I'm open to this being like powers that I could access or that would like watch out for me, but I'm also open to being like historical figures that have just been like deified. Uh,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. That's very real. I mean, that happened because they made it happen for themselves. They they made themselves deified a lot of times, right?
it's
Because
crazy
they
for
would,
me, like,
yeah.
you know, living in Norway, it does at times feel kind of backyardish. Like, Norwegians don't usually get to like set the worldwide trends. So it's crazy that the world has actually like sort of our names for the days of the week. Uh,
Yes.
uh,
Yes. That's
uh,
what I'm saying. I think the deep esoteric roots tie back to the ancient Nordic ways, like the ancient Vikings. Like they set precedent, and that's where a lot of that like cedar race comes in, and that big huge conversation, man. And that's why it's so strange to see it so deeply embedded into a lot of American culture.
yeah, it's like
You know,
Saturday. Saturday is the only day you have in English that doesn't like correspond to our
yeah, everything
uh,
else is, yeah, absolutely.
Norwegian Saturday is lørdag, which means like it's from old word laugardag, which means bathing day.
Oh,
So
that's
it's
interesting.
not like connected to a deity or a celestial object. It's just bathing day.
Yeah, here like symbolically a lot of times it's you know, it's connected to Saturn. And that's a whole thing on the, you know, it's a whole other topic going into Saturn symbology. Uh
Yeah, but that's like the only one who like snuck in there. But like Tyr for the Tuesday, Odin for the Wednesday, Thor for Thursday, Freya for the Friday. It's like very Norwegian.
yes, yeah,
And
absolutely.
it,
And I
it
love
makes you
telling,
wonder how like how could this how did the whole world come to adapt this?
yeah, it's because there's a tie between these ancient cultures, and there was I, I think a lot of it why the North is so important is because the the more north you go, the more like magnetic energy is there, and magnetic energy is incredibly important for our consciousness and for the Earth's stability, and to have it's huge, it's huge, it's huge, it's huge. So and part of the Box Saga story, you know, talking about the golden age splitting, and this is not just Box Saga, but this is a whole, you know, a whole other pantheons. But when the deluge happened and the axis came onto the earth, whoosh, it it actually created ice walls and ice blocks, and the north people of the north, they kind of got stuck in their ice, and behind an ice wall, and they had hundreds of years to deepen their technological abilities, and they everywhere else in the world kind of got devastated, and they lost their technologies. And so while the North was building their technologies, and they just were like keeping it going stronger, when the ice finally melted, they were able to make their way through, and that's when they came and, you know, kind of started to share this knowledge and share this information with the rest of the world, and not in like a way where they were like, let me just, you know, fucking, you are our people now, you know, like you'll listen to everything. But they were like helping because they had remnants of the way that things used to be, and they knew how things used to be, and then it all kind of spiraled out from there, you know. Yeah, so it sucks to hear that, you know, that like those places up north, you know, and in Europe that are so culturally rich and should be holding on to our history, are getting taken away by the modern society. And like this modern society, as many benefits as it brings, it is, you know, it's almost detrimental to the spirit. You know, like it takes away a lot from our spirituality. And I resonate so much more with the stories that I read about Odin and all the grimoires over than I do anything in the Bible. Anything in the Bible. Any grimoire I read, I'm like, this is the most mind-blowing shit I've ever read in my life. This is so cool. Like this is stuff I'm like, I want this to be the human history. I read the Bible, I'm like, this is boring. Like Jesus is cool, like great, like cool, dude. Like I love it, you know. A blind healer, you know, like white bearded dude, you know. Like no, well, he wasn't. That's not. That was terrible. Sometimes I say things completely out of context. But you know what I'm saying? Like I love the stories of Odin. I love him. I love all the symbolism that goes in there. It's endless. It's deep. It is deep, dude. Deep, 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 deep. Man,
I haven't thought about it before, but what you refer to now, which is basically from the Bach saga, right? The Atlantis, Outlandis,
Outlandis. Yes,
yeah.
yes. Outlandis.
Which
yes.
in Nynorsk is Outlandis. This is just straightforward. But yeah, it's this will be my closing statement, or like I gotta wrap this up. But for my listeners too, who like you mentioned the hollow earth theory a little bit earlier. I figured that one's probably new to a lot of my listeners. So I just wanted to mention that if this was to be true, like the Atlantis of the North was the advanced civilization, then it would also explain the hollow earth theory. Like most people who believe in the hollow earth, they have like an entrance to the inside of the earth at the north, and then there's an advanced civilization on the inside. So that would explain why presumably why the people who would like enter through the entrance at the north and make an advanced civilization on the inside, why it would be the northerners, sort of. And for anyone who wants to follow up on this, there's an old school classic called The Land of the Smoky God, which is
oh my goodness,
that guy's Norwegian, right? He lives in Sweden, but it's a Norwegian guy who claims to go inside the earth. And the Land of the Smoky God is him retelling like his story of going inside the earth. So if anyone wants to look into that, that's a title for you. It's like a very short, like fast read. With all this said, thank you so much, Romie. It was a great chat.
Man, yeah, it's been an honor, brother. I love how we could just, we're like, oh no, hold on, there's one more question, and then we go. So that just means we're gonna have to get back on and do it again. I'm really hope that everybody received all this well. If anybody has any questions, you know, I'm sure you'll put some of my contact information in the show notes. Feel free to reach out.
I'm usually like horrible at that, like all kinds of technical stuff. Like, so if you want me to put anything in there, I would greatly appreciate an email.
Yep, I'll send it over to you.
My notes will usually be like this is episode 46.
I'll send something over.
Yeah. All right, have a blessed week, man. So nice getting to know you.
You too, brother. Yeah, it's been an honor, man. Until next time.